Hello folks, Halcylion here. You know, there's something I kinda forgot to do at the start of my adventures here in Calradia. I did not set any long-term goals. I was like a leaf in the wind, floating from place to place without any purpose, and that way of conducting business is detrimental to a trader. My ultimate goal, as you know, is to dominate this entire continent. But that is unachievable during this playthrough because I'm limited to one episode per week. At the rate I'm going, the game's gonna have so many updates that will render this campaign unplayable, and as such, Harald's objectives have to be attainable. These goals will be the following: earn 1 million dinars, build a strong army, obtain a city, and then retire. It would not be a complete retirement, we'd still fight some battles here and there, but Harald will not go out of his way to rule this entire continent. With that out of the way, let me welcome you to the 6th episode of Trader Stories. As always, today's adventure begins outside of a town with us taking a brief look at our accomplishments so far. 80,000 dinars, 2 workshops, 1 caravan, and a decent set of armor. I'm nowhere close to fulfilling my objectives, but I've taken the most important steps to getting there. I'm not the only one freezing outside this town. Jason, the patriarch of House Neretzes, is here with me. Maybe we should strike up a conversation. I'm not very well liked by this family, so maybe I can buy my way into their good graces. About 4,000 dinars should suffice. And here lies the first lesson of today. Having money makes people like you. Now let's take a look at our investments. The caravan ain't earning too much money just yet, but we barely set it up. The leather worker is really profitable, but the blacksmith I set up in Seonon after all that effort is barely making a quarter of what a tannery earns. Can't say I'm pleased. I'm so displeased in fact that I'm gonna sell it and buy another ironworks in the town of Epikrotea, because this town is being supplied by 2 iron mines, not just one. Maybe this is a smart move. It's too early to tell. There's already a blacksmith shop in this town, but there's 2 other workshops that are problematic. A tannery, which is in direct competition with the one I bought in a town not far from here, and a carpenter which drives up the prices of wood that my smithy could use. It could be in my best interest if I were to purchase both of them, change their production, and liquidate them before investing into the forge. I shall convert them into pottery shops to both remove them as competitors and create a demand for clay in the city. Clay which I can import from nearby Botanian towns. Doing so will waste about 5,000 of my own dinars, but it may just be the right move in the long run. With these maneuvers now complete, all we can do is wait and see if they were worth it. Realistically, the pottery shops would be purchased by other investors and have their productions reverted to something more profitable, but the people don't seem to mind the fact that I made them dependent on imported clay. I suspect that with time, people will grow wiser. Well, that's one thing taken care of, but we're a long way from achieving our long-term objectives, and to do that, we'll have to break them down into digestible, short-term goals. As such, today's main ambition is to get married. I've already had my eyes on this girl for a while. Her name is Chalia and she's not really nice, but to be quite frank, I don't care about her personality, but her assets. She's got a badass suit of armor I want, and this would not be the first time I took someone into my clan strictly for their armor. My own companion, Garayan, who is now leading a caravan, was hired just so I can wear his chainmail. But the armor is not the only reason I want Chalia as my wife. Her family name, even though tainted by failure, still commands respect to this day, and a matrimonial alliance with House Neretzes could play out in my favor. We're not quite there yet, I'm still gonna have to woo the lady and impress her with my charm. I'm already accepted by her family by virtue of gifting 4,000 dinars to her cousin a few days prior. But chasing chainmail skirts is not my only goal at the moment. I'm going to keep trading a little bit here and there just to keep my skill in good shape, and I shall also dedicate some time to smithing, and who knows, maybe I'll learn to craft some masterwork weapons that could fetch me more money than commerce. Don't get me wrong, I like trading. But lately there's been an increase in caravan activity, and I've noticed that every town has a stable supply of everything regardless of local production, and the profit I can get through trade is not as big as it used to be. I'm not going to give you any details about how my smithing went, because it was mostly a fruitless endeavor. I will tell you what I've done in this regard once, and then I'll never mention it again. The method I used was one I learned from blacksmiths I met in my travels. Some of them recommended that I smelt any weapons I find, and doing so may teach me new designs. Others told me to purchase cheap imperial daggers and smelt them into fine steel, so I may actually have materials to craft good weapons when I finally learn how. Blacksmithing was mainly something I did to pass the time as I waited for one thing or another, and even though I didn't learn anything new, I still made some progress in that field. As soon as I was done with the workshops, I headed to the last known location of Chalia. Saneopa, the town I just left. It would have probably been better if I purchased some cheap goods to sell in there, but I didn't listen to my trader instinct anymore, but to something else. When I arrived, I inquired about her presence, but she already went to another place. Varagos Castle. Luckily, I didn't have to cross half the map to get there, and when I arrived, I did not bother to enter the castle. I just asked the guards on the battlements whether Chalia was there, and I demanded an audience with her. And there she was in all her splendor. Chalia's armor, that's what I truly desire. This romantic scene is reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet, except Juliet is dressed like she's about to go to war. We exchanged names, and immediately after I shouted from the bottom of the battlements, "My lady, I wish to profess myself your most ardent admirer." After which I immediately asked for her hand in marriage. She considered it. So we set up an instant date inside of Varagos Castle where she asked questions about me, most importantly, what are my goals and aspirations. I told her exactly what I told you. As soon as I earn enough to retire, I'm out of the game. She seemed to consider it a noble objective. This speed date went well. I gave her a little gift and we found out we have at least 3 things in common, so we agreed to see each other again very soon. But I had to wait a little while or else I would seem too desperate. About a week should suffice. Soon as I left the castle, I had a talk with her cousin to see if we could arrange the marriage, but no such option was available. I eventually made my way back to Saneopa, and while waiting for the week to pass, I would practice my smithing. I also decided to do a bit of trading just to train my skill a bit, but I cannot say that it went too well. The third important thing that I did during my wait was to run around 3 imperial villages and recruiting anyone who would join. I need to build an army because I think I'll have to get actual human blood on my hands if I am to attain my goals. Oh yeah, we also slaughtered looters and bandits on my travels, but those fights are not worth talking about. One fight that was a bit different from others was against 42 looters, and it was done to train my new recruits into proper soldiers. Anyway, I couldn't wait the entire week, and after 4 days I went back to Varagos Castle to see Lady Chalia yet again. We met, we talked, and she basically threw 2 shit tests at me, but I passed them by saying how loyal I am. She accepted my marriage proposal, but she said I needed the blessing of her family, more specifically, Chason. So I chased after him across the whole map. It was rumored he was around the village of Orthra, and when I arrived there, the locals told me he went towards Themis. The villagers of Themis told me he went to another village, and his trail took me through several different towns and villages by the time I caught up to him near Amprella. Well, I had to visit the town first, and because there were a lot of cheap goods for sale in there, I spent 10,000 dinars on various items, hoping to turn a small profit on them. His army wasn't far from the town. I eventually managed to have another audience with him, and after a one-time payment of 3,000 dinars, he declared me and his cousin husband and wife. All that was left was to pick her up from Varagos Castle, but before heading back there, I decided to spend some time trading and smithing. Mezea had some shortages, and I managed to sell some of the stuff I purchased earlier, and I earned 1 measly point in trade. Whatever money I earned were spent on various weapons, which I would hope to teach me new designs upon reverse engineering them, but as I've said, that path towards Laza money didn't pay off this time. Eventually I made my way back to the castle, and I would have my betrothed join my army and keep me company on my travels. Eventually we would even fight side by side, romantically bonding over our different decapitation techniques and even getting freaky after sweating at the forge all day. Together we rode to the nearest town, got a private room, took off our suits of armor and exchanged them. God damn, this armor is expensive as hell. If I were to find a buyer, it would fetch me more than 300,000 dinars. That money could then be used to invest into more soldiers, more caravans, more workshops, and get me closer to achieving my end goal, but you know what? I'm not selling it. First of all, no town can afford paying for it. Secondly, it's the best armor on the continent and I would never find something better than this. And third, it looks beautiful. As soon as we were done with this, I decided to give this armor a test by enrolling in a tournament. First round was a free-for-all that eventually turned into a 2-minute long duel between me and a legionary. After lots of wood chopping, I managed to defeat him, but even though he lost, he still qualified for the next round, which was also a free-for-all. Because he was a lucky son of a bitch, he got teamed up with a sergeant crossbowman, another soldier with top-of-the-line armor. The legionary fell, but the sergeant managed to score his team second place, qualifying the legionary yet again. Third round was me and a horseman against this dream team of sergeant and legionnaire. I was hoping the horseman wouldn't be a complete deadweight to our team, and he wasn't. He did his best and heavily injured the sergeant, but he eventually fell before his opponent, and I was left to fend for myself in a 2v1. If I managed to take out the sergeant, I could probably win the duel against the legionary. However, I cannot fight two opponents without a shield, and mine was starting to break. I picked up the shield dropped by my teammate and kept fighting. Eventually, Sarge got knocked out and I was left in a duel which I was sure I was going to win. And then my shield broke and I wasn't so sure anymore, but I grabbed the one on my back and kept fighting. Then that one broke, and my lack of confidence in my ability to fight without the shield caused me to try to pick up a third one from the ground, but that turned out to be a mistake. As soon as I grabbed it, I got struck in the back and got knocked out, losing the tournament. Eventually the Legio and the Sarge fought each other, and I guess you already know how that went. I should have just tried to parry with my weapon and retaliate, if only I were more confident. But that defeat was due to my own incompetence. The armor passed the test with flying colors, because I almost felt invincible wearing that. Without it, I'd have probably lost in the first round. Gotta love these dowries noblemen leave to their daughters. And what a daughter she is! Her grandfather was the penultimate emperor of the Great Calradic Empire before it broke apart into 3 separate pieces. Anyway, with all that achieved, I decided to travel the continent and keep trading. I spent 7,000 dinars in Saneopa buying out whatever was reasonably priced, and then I left. Eventually, I got a sign that I am an elite gamer when my daily income looked like this. In my travels, I repeatedly did several things. I recruited volunteers, I kept trading, and tried to buy Pugios from every imperial town I would visit. I also spent some time at the forge whenever I had the chance. One important thing to note is that numbers don't lie. Well, that's what I told myself when I wanted to purchase iron from Mekalovea. Each unit of ore cost 103 dinars, and the price tag told me that it's 105% cheaper than average. Arithmetic was never my strong suit, but if 100 is 105% cheaper than average, then that would mean I could sell it for more than 200 dinars apiece, right? Wrong. But you see, I maintained the belief that numbers don't lie. Then I went to Marathea to obtain some more cheap iron, and then I went into Epicrotea to buy the rest of the available iron, excited for the profit I was going to make. As I was purchasing the ore, I saw the price increasing on every unit I purchased, which is normal, but the percentage indicator kept increasing as well, and that doesn't really make any sense. When the iron cost 90 dinars, it was 80% cheaper. When it cost 120 dinars, it was 140% cheaper. And at 68 dinars, it's only 36% cheaper. How exactly is something cheaper the more expensive it gets? Hint, it's not. Lesson number 2. Numbers do lie. And it looks like my financial advisors are about to lose their heads. Well, looks like I got scammed into buying iron at 100 dinars. Maybe I'll make some profit on it, but not anywhere as much as I was expecting. After this, I spent a couple more days in this town, smithing and looking for deals. I eventually purchased some pottery and tools, hoping to eventually sell them for profit. With those goods in my caravan, we walked all the way to Seonon, where I spent 16,000 on random cheap goods. It would have been 18,000, but I sold some of the stuff from earlier, earning another point in trade. I need to improve my trade routes if I hope to unlock the ability to purchase fiefs. A stone's throw away, in Maronath, I was able to sell a lot of my stuff, leveling up trade once more. This town also hosted a tournament where I decided to participate, and even though it was rather difficult, I did end up victorious. I was especially proud of my performance in the second round, where my teammate fell within the first 3 seconds of the round, and I had to win 2 1v2s all by myself. Without the armor, I would have probably fallen after 1 or 2 hits, so marriage does have its benefits. Earlier I did say I'm not going to talk about smithing a whole lot because it didn't go very well for me, but my efforts were not all in vain. Even though I failed to obtain new and profitable weapon designs, I still increased my proficiency and learned how to more efficiently produce charcoal. Soon after, I headed to Penkanok, where I earned another 15,000 and a skill point in trade. I then visited the other 2 Battanian towns, where I continued my routine of trading, smithing and tournamenting, making good progress in my campaign. Nothing too special. But I could not find a buyer for most of the stuff I purchased in Epic Rotea, so I decided to venture through each of the Vlandian towns, trying my best to offload my goods and make a profit, but it was all a waste of time. I kept going south, trying to sell the pot I purchased earlier, but to no avail. Pottery used to fetch top dollar in these towns. Now, everyone and their mother has such a shop. I would have been better off liquidating the stuff and taking this loss instead of wasting all this time trying to earn a profit. Our road took us to Ortygia, where we continued our routine of smithing and resting in town. The only good news came when my beautiful wife told me she's expecting. On one hand, I'm glad I'll have an heir, but on the other, I don't yet feel ready to be a father. Maybe we should have worn protection. How should I celebrate? I know, by winning a tournament. No such competition is taking place in Ortygia. Maybe Lagetta will host one? Yes, it does. First round required me to shoot people with arrows. That was so easy it requires no further commentary. The second round was a free-for-all, 10% of which was the actual free-for-all and 90% of it was a duel between me and an Imperial commander named Fea. It was a tough fight, but my armor raised my survivability to ridiculous levels even when the shield broke. I'm also making use of a technique which allows my bashes to be more effective, almost guaranteeing that I'll land a strike after a successful bash, be it done with a shield or without. Because Fea scored second place in the free fight, I would face her again in the next round. I was assigned a teammate without any armor whatsoever, and I fully expected to be stuck in a 1v2 against armored opponents, but my comrade actually won his fight before being downed by Fea. Now we were dueling yet again. The fight went pretty much as you'd expect. Lots of wood chopping, bashing and slashing until she's fallen before me. This time unqualified for the next round. That honor belonged to my former teammate, whose lack of armor doomed him to a sour defeat. 2 sword slashes left him severely injured, and I actually ended the fight when I gave him a taste of my shield. Yet again, I stand as the winner of the tournament. I dedicate this victory to my future son, or daughter, who will rule in my stead when I am all but ashes. Long may he reign. And this was all I had for today. 2 more months have passed since this journal entry began, and we're in the 10th day of summer of 1086, with some more money in my pocket, a family, and an impenetrable suit of armor which will keep me alive in the wars to come. I could have also assembled a nice army, but we're 1 man short. We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close. Anyway, next up, I should really try to manipulate the markets and make some real profit, but that's a high risk, unknown reward strategy. It could end up earning me lots of money and skill points, or it could be a complete waste of time and money. Won't know until we try it. Anyway, lads and lasses, it is time to wrap up today's episode. Thank you all for watching and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.